So our next speaker is going to be Sean Dong, he's the Program Director of Central Software Institute. So Sean has been leading a lot of work, including a brand new programming language that was created called Cangjie. But what's really interesting is to see that the use of AI by the Cangjie team and this 300 day. I'm really interested to hear from Sean why you picked 300 days as the key for your test, but you'll soon tell us in a minute. But a fascinating journey of how to actually bring AI into the team and how it actually worked out. And hopefully share your experiences, learning, and welcome Sean Dong.
Thank you. Very glad to be back to Paris. I think it was the same time last year. We did a session, right? So some familiar faces. And so I'll just start my presentation because I think I'm going to be over time. All right. And yeah, a disclaimer, my slides are totally made with AI. Of course, I gave my thoughts to AI and bullet points and all that. So it's not really fitting into all the templates. So sorry for not fitting into a template, but I think that's a good thing sometimes. So as for why we picked 300 days, because actually it was as of 2 months ago that was 300 days. So right now it's about a year. Because I remember last year we started this conference, right? That was the first time we started here, right? I already kicked off the kind of using AI process in my team. So it's actually by now almost a year. So just to share some thoughts and learnings we have done with our team, and hopefully that will be something good for you guys and something to learn for you guys. And just a bit about the programming language we are doing on our team. I remember earlier in the audience, there was somebody asking he's doing Swift and is it easy to switch over to Open Harmony, and this is your choice. The Cangjie programming language is actually a language that's quite familiar with the same quadrant with Conway, Swift, and Java. We're trying to be statically compiled, statically typed, but faster than them, and which is a good choice if you're building high-performance applications on Open Harmony. Of course, we also support the cloud applications like microservices and whatnot, and also we have agentic frameworks supporting to build agentic applications, and that should be all for the language itself. But here I am today, I'm not talking about the language itself, and you can actually go to our Twitter or X, or you can go to our website to learn more about it. And what I'm going to talk about from this point on, is how we kind of transform our team into using it on a daily basis. And before all that, this is a chart I think appeared earlier this year. I think it's somewhere in February. If you look at the squares on the chart, this is the whole population of the world as of today. It's about 8.1 billion people. Each of the dot there is actually how many was it? I think it was around 1 million people, or 3.2. Oh, 3.2, sorry. I've got that. It's about 3 million people in the world, so each of the dot. So the green dot there is actually the population that has never used it as of this February. That was a lot. That's like 600 billion. It's unimaginable if you think about it. Because I guess most of people here have already been using it a lot by beginning of this year. But again, 6.8 billion people have never used it around February this year. I don't think that changed a lot now. So next one is the green dot. That's the one using free chats, free AI chats, GPTs and Geminis and Anthropics, and also a whole lot of different DeepSeeks and different models in different places. But that's the freeloaders, the green one, right? You don't pay, you just use it. Then the yellow ones, those are the people who's paying $20 a month for, I guess, mostly coding plans, right? I hope most of the guys here are on that tier, right? Who is still not paying on a monthly basis? Raise your hand. Okay, good. And that's most of us, I guess. Then the red one would be that the guys using AI to build something on top of AI. If you use a buzzword today, that would be agentic stuff, and that would be harness stuff, right? That's the red dots. It's about 2 to 5 million people around February. I don't think that changed a lot either. So I think the dots here, the proportion have not changed a lot in the past 3 months, but that basically speaks some truths, which is that the world has been fragmented by AI. I think it's a big problem, but if you are in the last two category, that's a good thing for now, because that's your advantage, right? You are using it, you're leveraging it to build something for the rest of people, especially hoping that the green dot people will be using your stuff, your product. If you're an entrepreneur, of course, you're hoping they will pay one day for your service one or another. So that's a good thing for now, but that's not healthy for the whole world. But again, go back to the technology side. That's the hard fact. Now, when we started our journey, our team, which was last April-ish, last May, most of the people are our team. I mean, the Cangjie team, which accounts about 150 people to 200 people, depends on the time you're counting. We were the green people. Almost all of us were green people. I believe 100%, but I cannot say for sure. That's almost the same time last year we started. Then we transitioned into the yellow part. Then we transitioned into the red part. So in the beginning, that was around last April, I was trying to use different coding products to write some programs. I figured that it's already useful, but bear in mind this was last April. So a whole lot of stuff you still have to teach AI while you're doing it. And it was effective, but it was not that easy to use. But that's the time I started gradually trying to talk to people on my team to try to convince them to use it. As you can see, this is a hard problem because AI changes a lot, changes very fast, especially in the past half year. In the beginning of last year, the model basically renews itself every year or every 6 months. But then when you're going towards the end of last year, basically the cadence became 3 months. But then if you look at the beginning of this year, I think almost from February, you're looking at new models going on every month. That's really fast. By now, it will be hard to kind of find any kind of developers who is not using it on a daily basis. But if you look at a year ago, that's not the case. Most developers still don't believe AI is the thing. AI is going to be the one that's coding for them. So that's really hard in the beginning. So then we kind of figure out a way to convince people and gradually join the movement. I found a couple of guys, precisely 3 guys on my team first to start using AI, try to build up some positive cases and try to have them share these cases on all hands meeting, try to record them into video and write them into wikis, trying to convince others to use it. That was last May, and it took us about 2 months to convince some of the people to start using it on a weekly basis. I wouldn't even say daily basis. Then we become the second pillar there. Then we go to the second pillar there. We see that in the team, people gradually, see that, okay, this is the thing, it can help me. Then we picked out from each of the sprint team 1 or 2 guys to use AI for their own task. So basically, there'll be like you pick 1 or 2 guys from a 10 people team to use them on the task they are doing on a daily basis. Then we do the process again, asking them to stand out, share the positive cases. Of course, sometimes there will be the not so positive cases. Try to convince more people on that sprint team to use it. That took us around another 3 months or so. Then you see gradually in the team people are using more and more AI. And in the meantime, we are trying to reimburse their token cost, but not 100% people on the team. That's another thing. We call it bring your own token to work. Remember that was like 10 or 12 years ago, there was the BYOD trend. I see some people are nodding, like bring your own device to work trend, right? That was like 2015-ish, I think they started that. But we call it bring your own token, so BYOK. So that was how we started. Still now, some people in our team, they're still bringing their own token because we only reimburse certain providers' tokens, but they want to use more advanced tokens like Office 4.6 and GPT 5.5, and then up until this point, we are not able to reimburse all of that, which was quite expensive, those tokens. But we are trying to cover, most people's token cost. But then we move into the third pillar, which was actually moving about 30%, 50% up until the fourth pillar, which was beginning of this year. We moved almost 100% of our team onto using AI on a daily basis to help them to code, or actually, in many times, automotive in auto mode to code. We will see that later in the slides. And then we have not reached the fifth pillar in this slides, because in my plan, the fifth pillar would be that we have to reorg the team to break them into smaller sub-teams, so that each team would be like, for example, 2 to 3 guys, even in extreme cases, 1 guy, then with several agents, basically code all the tokens to help them finish the work that would usually take, say, for example, 4 to 5 people that get do today. So that will be somewhere. I hope we can kind of achieve that later this year, maybe around, say, September or October time, maybe even towards the end of this year. So that's how our team are transforming through this journey. That will be how we took almost a year to reach the fourth pillar. And in this process, we discovered a whole lot of different interesting stuff. First off, as I said, that was in the beginning. I figured, okay, really, in some of these cases, you would reach 10x productivity. But then you would still have people in very doubt that, would this help me? Am I going to be replaced? But that was quite early last year. I don't think people will have that kind of doubt when you reach end of last year and beginning this year. So that was a unique problem to our team because we started too early. Now, towards the second pillar, if you remember, you would have some of the pioneers in the team. I'm talking about like less than a dozen people among kind of 150 to 200 people. You would have these pioneers realizing, oh, this is really helping. I can do it daily basis. It can help me save a lot of time, so I have more time to explore new stuff, exciting stuff. Then they are the people on the left side. They're not slacking off, of course. This is too vivid, but they're not slacking off, but they're exploring new stuff on the side, doing side projects. But then you still have a whole lot of people, basically 90% of people still don't believe AI, don't use AI. They will be on the old paradigm of, estimating their work by weeks, by months, and doing, plannings for what I'm going to deliver in 3 months or half year. This is the time you will see this kind of what we call the parallel worlds, right? you have people on the one side, which is less than 10%, moving like 10x, then you have still 90% of people in the old world, which is still executing the old mode. So this is very interesting. Then, of course, then these 10% of people, they're kind of the ones who's crossing the thresholds, who actually figure they found a new word and they're running this new word, but then you still have the 90% of people really in doubt, like, okay, should I use it? Is this going to be helpful? This is very common in, say, last May to August-ish in our team. But the thing is that, bear in mind, you might think that this is not a thing anymore, but like I said, the model is developing very fast, almost on a monthly basis. So what would happen next year or in 2 to 3 years? Nobody can see, nobody can predict. So I would still advise everybody to keep an open mind. Maybe the same kind of thing is already happening, just on a different paradigm, on a different level, because the model is developing so fast. Then, when we reached last year around October, I believe October, November-ish, when you see that Cloud Code and Codex has really passed the threshold, where they're really effective on long-running coding tasks with much larger context, then everything actually started to change. Because this is the time you truly see that these kind of tooling with a very effective model behind it can really help you to do longer work, like those kind of overnight work. I believe this was a time when I was like almost sleepless every night until 1 or 2 o'clock, because I was striving to find a large chunk of work to ask Cloud Code to do for me, so that it can run overnight. So the next morning I wake up, it would finish the work. So I wouldn't waste the nights while I'm sleeping, while I want Cloud Code to do it for me. But then sometimes I wake up, I figure, okay, it only took this guy 2 hours to do the work. Then I wasted almost 4 hours, 6 hours of time by not choosing the proper work for it. So this was the time when people are really getting excited. Then the next thing like when you're crossing the end of this year, when you reach the beginning of this year, everybody believes it. Now these are some of the data I collected, because while I ask my team to use AI, I'm asking them to record what they have done. Not in the literal sense, not like Facebook, if we're not talking about it. I'm asking them to kind of do postmortems, recording the data, like how effective this make their daily task to be, and write them into the wikis and share this kind of positive and sometimes negative cases on our bi-weekly meeting, which have really become my favorite part of our bi-weekly all-hands meeting. Now, if you look at the green ones, they are the compiler kind of work. So because we are a language team, a whole lot of people are actually doing compiler work and runtime work. So these are the kind of work before actually beginning of this year, you wouldn't imagine AI can do, right? If you remember, somewhere around February, Anthropic published this blog post where they actually used Opus 4.6 to build a C compiler. That's actually when this is truly possible. And our team started doing that around that time. So the green ones are actually compiler kind of work. And you see this kind of work, some of them are actually getting a quarter gain in terms of productivity, and some of them getting like 60% of boost, which was quite impressive if you think about the difficulty level of this kind of work, right? And then the orange-ish one, somewhere towards the middle, is my personal favorite case. So one of my engineer, he was investigating a C++ crash in the compiler. It took him 3 days. He couldn't figure out, or he couldn't fix the problem. 3 days. Then he decided, okay, let me try to use AI. And guess what? Within a quarter day, AI finished that work. So if you count the numbers, that would be like 12x, right? Productivity boost, which was quite amazing. So we did some post-mortem, like why this would happen. He said, because in order to kind of grasp why is this crashing, he had to look whole lot of code base, which was quite large context for a person to handle. Then trying to reproduce and trying to figure out what's going on, do a very long debugging and going through a whole lot of code, which was quite difficult if you think about it. Fixing a compiler bug is usually one of the most difficult kind of work in software. But then this wasn't quite a huge problem for AI. Then the next thing you know, the AI fixed it within a quarter day, which was quite amazing. But again, this is on a personal task level. If you look at the title there, it's the personal task, and most of them are around, say, like 5 days work, 2-3 days work. This is not if you look at the 100, 200 people team, how they would churn work on a half-year basis. And to put that into perspective, whole lot of cases like this are happening in our team, in individual task perspective, but on the sprint level cases, you would see, which is the next slide. Oh, I didn't have that slide. Anyhow, on the sprint level teamwork basis, you would see something less than this, something like 10, 20, 30, 40% of productivity boost. Because guess what? People spend a lot of time not coding. That's the hard truth of software engineering, right? You spend a lot of time in meetings if you have a larger team. The larger the team you have, the more time you spend on not coding, right? And I see people nodding, I see people smiling. If you have been to, doing kind of work in this kind of team, you know what I'm talking about. So then, in the beginning of this year, we started coining our practices. We figured this word would be the agentic centric engineer. That's how we coined it. I think that's how we are practicing it in the past few months. So which was, in the old days, you have people, using tools and build software. But in the new days, you have your developers and whatnot, basically your employees and your team members. They are becoming a kind of like director of a show. A show which is put out by agents. So you have them, running agents to do the actual software, but you still need them to be in control with the agent. Otherwise, AI is very productive. It can be productive in the right way and can also be productive in the wrong way. And you see that nowadays, people are using it to churn a lot of, good work, but then you see more and more garbage code appearing on GitHub. That's also the sad truth and sad fact. So you still need your engineers to be in control, to do the right kind of work. Then we started building our own harness project, which we open sourced on link over there. This is what our team are using almost in the past 3 or 4 months. And I'm sorry, the APIs has not fully been documented into English, but we are planning to do that within the next week or so. Because guess what? For me personally, I made a rule for myself. Starting last May, I decided that I will not write a single line of code myself. I'm sticking to that from last May. And I also decided I'm not going to write a single line of documentation Not that I'm not writing, but I'm using AI to write it. I'm also sticking to that. So far, I have been successful. So in the past year, I personally have not written any code, any documentation. I'm using AI to do all that. Even sometimes I see this live code, I could just, type in 2 characters to change it. But I resisted myself. I successfully resisted myself in many occasions to not do that, but to, using prompt or some agent to do that. Sounds like a meeting. This clicker is lagging like half second. I don't know what. Oh yeah, this is the kind of data I was talking about. Sorry, I kind of messed up the order. This is the sprint level data. So basically, you have different teams. For example, the compiler team here, the library team in the middle, and also we have our standard library meeting. Standard library team, and also third-party library team doing our different kind of libraries. And these are the kind of data we see on the sprint level, like bi-weekly sprint level. Now, we have figured that the productivity boost in many times are quite high, but if you dissect it, what contributed to those productivity boosts? Mostly you can kind of dissect them into 3 factors. The first factor would be still the creativity of the person, of your engineer, the one who is running the agents. That's still the most important factor so far we have seen. That answers the question, like, are we going to be replaced by agents or by AI? I think that's the place where people still have the edge. Basically, being very creative, knowing the right way to do the kind of work, knowing what you want to achieve as a team, as a person. That's still the most important factor. But then the next factor would be the one towards the end, which is the V factor, which is the verification efficiency. Why I'm talking about that? Because the large model today are actually what we call jet intelligent model, right? They are pretty good at certain things, but they're still not so good at a few things. I'm running out of time. I have still I think 5 minutes.
Your sign go up at 0.
I saw the 0. Yeah, I'll just be quick. Yeah. So this is the place you want your task to be verifiable by AI. If your task is not verifiable by AI, you're not gonna get a productivity boost. That's the bottom line. That's a hard fact we have learned. That's a cold truth we have learned. If you want AI to be creative to write some jokes, I'm sorry, AI is still not so good at that. Because large model is trained in the end with reinforcement learning model. Reinforcement learning model needs some data that needs to be quantifiable, to be measured. And most of the problem that's closer to math problem, physics problems, code problems are in that spectrum. So that's why AI is very efficient on that end. That's why you want your problem that you're solving the kind of problem you want AI to solve for your team to be towards that spectrum verifiable. That's very important. Then the I factor there is iteration speed. How your AI or how your team with agents, with help of AI and with help of agent can do the iteration loop. How fast you can do that. Basically also a very important factor here. So if you put those 3 factors there, if you can gain 5x, 10x on each of them, your team is golden, right? You're golden because we're talking about OPCs, one-person companies and code heroes nowadays. Even if you're a single person, you can manage to boost all those 3 factors in very high level, then you're very golden. You're probably going to be building the next $1 billion company. But sometimes it's hard to get all three very high. Now this is the churn part of the problem I was talking about, right? You have a whole lot of people in your team, then you have to have them talking to each other in many occasions, at least crossing the team borders to talking to each other, to have meetings, then this is actually where the time are spent nowadays, mostly spent on any engineering team. People talking, people meeting. The larger team you have, like I said earlier, the more time you spend on this. So now with AI cannot help people, unfortunately so far, cannot help people to minimize that kind of problem, to minimize that kind of time. So if you want AI to be more productive in your team, which is what we are trying to do nowadays, to kind of make it into that kind of pattern. In order to do that, the Conway law, the architecture of your software is a reflection of architecture of your team. So you need to actually go to the root of the problem to change the architecture of your team, change how you organize people in order to change how you organize software, in order to reach from here to here, which is difficult because organizational changes are the most difficult problem in human history. Now, some of learning them going to go through it quickly. This is object intelligence I talked about. So basically, sometimes you feel like you're dealing with a genius PhD, but with a 10-year-old tantrum. That's, in many cases, true. Now, this is my personal learning. I coined it Map 10. I'm not going to go through it, so I'm going to share my slides on my Twitter account. So follow me on my Twitter. And you can just look at this later. And yeah, I'm gonna just jump in on that because I'm running out of time. Otherwise, Adrian's gonna be rude to me, right? I think that's it. Oh yeah, I don't know why it's Sean XDO, not XD0. Just follow me on my Twitter. I'm gonna share my slides over there.
So I'd really like to thank Sean Dong for that great presentation. Sean, you said your slides were AI generated. Next time you need to put in a prompt. Please keep it to 20 minutes on the prompt. But anyway, I actually...
It's the manageable part, the human part.
Yeah. But you really brought up some really interesting points, right? Because, I looked at, Bill Wren did a keynote this morning and he compared, Microsoft and JetBrains creating IDs and then Cursor coming along with tens of employees, organized properly via the ACE model that you just presented, and just the production of, having a $58 billion industry out of it. That's probably going to be the model, and it's taking that model into big companies and big corporations. That's going to be a harder journey, right? But again, I think thanks again to Sean. I'm not going to open up for questions because we're now behind time. So thanks again. Round of applause for Sean.